End up sitting on a rainbow.
So, folks, what's love got to do with business? In a word, absolutely everything. That's actually 2 words because it's really important. So, hey, this new book is one of my favorite books of all time. The author is one of my favorite people of all time. It's Steve Farber. The book is called Love is Just Damn Good Business. Do what you love in the service of people who love what you do. And I met Farber about 13, 14, 15 years ago, a long time ago. We're fellow leadership bloggers, long time ago. Steve worked for Tom Peters Corporation, had 2 great books, Radical Leap and Radical Edge, that totally changed the way that I live, that I lead. Since then, he also wrote Greater Than Yourself, which is absolutely fantastic. He mentored Tommy Spalding, who wrote a great book as well. And now his latest book is his best book, Love is Just Damn Good Business. So Farber, why the heck? Love is squishy, man. Why are you writing a book about love?
Gerbyshak. It's great to spend this time with you.
Yeah,
so the simple answer to the question is because love is just damn good business.
Yeah.
So it was time to slap that on a book cover and devote an entire book to it. So this is, as you know, this is a culmination of, and I've been doing this work for 30 years in some form or another. And what became really clear in every kind of business that I've had exposure to, which is just about every kind of business, in every kind of company that I've been involved with or had exposure to, which is just about every kind of company. The one universal element that rises to the top when I look at the best leaders that I've met and the greatest companies and the greatest teams is this love dynamic. And it's so odd because it's so prevalent and it's so universal, and yet we very rarely call it what it is. So I just thought it was time to call it out and then give lots of examples on what it looks like and how we might, really amplify this very fundamental human experience that we all have within us, and put that into practice as a business strategy.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I think people miss that, right? They really think that it's squishy, and to that point, the reason people do what they do at work is because they have love or because they're missing love. I really think that's true. That subtitle, that's how I've tried to live my life for the last 20 years and how I've tried to work, right? Do what you love in the service of those who love what you do. So let's break that down, Steve, because it's not just, hey, find what you love to do and go do that. I think it's a really important distinction. So break that down, and why is do what you love in the service of those who love what you do? Why is it that intentionally worded?
Yeah, so that is, as you mentioned, the subtitle of the book. It's also the way the book is structured, and it's the framework for operationalizing love as a business practice. So to break it down, do what you love is the foundation for this whole thing, but it's not the whole story, right? I mean, one could argue that criminals are doing what they love too. That doesn't qualify them for the kind of thing that we're talking about. So, there's this kind of common belief that's been around for a while that says, if you're doing what you love, everything else will just take care of itself. There was that famous book many years ago called Do What You Love and the Money Will Follow. Do what you love and the coins will fall on your head. Do what you love and all shall be granted unto you. I don't know that that's entirely true. For some it is, but it's important, but it's not the whole story. So here's a way to think about it. If all I'm doing is what I love, and I don't really care how that impacts anybody else, as long as I'm doing what I love, that's just another way of saying narcissism. So there is an application to this that becomes really important. That's the second part of the framework, which is in the service of people. In the service of people. So yes, I'm doing what I love. I'm tapping into, to speak poetically, the power of my own heart, but I'm using that to give tremendous value to you, to serve you, whether you, my employees, you, my team, you, my colleagues, you, my customers, right? So I'm doing what I love. I'm serving you, but I'm not just serving you because I feel obligated to, but because I want to have a phenomenal impact on you. So I'm serving you to such a degree that the result is reciprocation. you love me in return. So we all know that if we have, once we have clients and customers raise their hand and say, I love what you do for me. I love doing business with you. I love the contribution you've made to my success and to my life and to my business, whatever it is. That's the ideal customer. That's what we want more of. So it becomes this wonderful kind of virtuous cycle. I'm doing what I love in the service of people, and the response is they love me back. And then once that happens, those are the people I'm spending my, even more quality time with as I'm cultivating others to come up into that category.
Awesome. It's a beautiful cycle, and it totally makes so much sense. I mean, we're at 2% unemployment, which is virtually nobody who is able to work and wants to work is unemployed, which is wonderfully amazing. So I really think love is the differentiator now. Like if you want to be an employer of choice, if you want to be a leader of choice, I really think it's not enough just to be smart or good at your job. I think you have to lead from your heart. You have to lead with your heart and help people see that you're doing it in the service of them. So how do we measure this though, Steve? Because that's one of the interesting things that I like about your book is you talk about measuring love.
Yeah.
ROI of that. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think we already do, actually. So for example, if you look at, the kind of the gold standard for measuring customer performance is the Net Promoter Score. And the Net Promoter Score, it's not easy to say, but the Net Promoter Score measures a very simple thing. To what degree on a scale of 1 to 10 are you likely to recommend us to friends or family? Not to colleagues, not to the guy on the street, but to friends or family. And, a number of years back, I read an interview with a senior executive at Intuit. They were talking about the Net Promoter Score, and in his words, he said, we view this as the love metric. That when customers give us a 10, essentially what they're saying is they love us. And that's exactly true. So Net Promoter Score is a measure of love. I agree with that. So anything less than a 10 or less than a 9 is simply not acceptable. It's not like if I get a 5, it's okay. It's a 5. It's not a 1. The whole point of Net Promoter Score is you want to get a 9 or a 10. In other words, what they're saying is that if our clients don't love us, we're losing the game. Mm-hmm. So we can measure it through Net Promoter Score. We can also measure it internally. I think, in employee engagement measurements are a good measurement of love. I can't imagine a scenario where an employee would answer positively on all the elements that go into engagement and then conclude with, I hate this freaking place. Right? Oh yeah, I'm engaged. Oh yeah, I'm totally in. I've got great relationships at work. I feel like I'm doing meaningful work. I feel like my work is appreciated. I feel like I can't wait till Monday, but I hate it. Yeah. It's a measurement of love. We don't typically use the word, but I think we should. And let me just qualify that, okay? Because as you know, I'm not talking about simply using the language. Language is important, and I'll explain why in a second, but using the language is easy. I mean, for example, how many dry cleaners are there that
within driving distance of me? Probably 10.
Yeah, right? Probably 10. And then if you pick any one of them at random, I'm going to bet there's a pretty high likelihood that when you take your shirt off of that hanger, it's got that little paper thing in the hanger that says, we heart our customers.
Yeah, I bet they do. Yeah, for sure.
Virtually every one of them does. So it's easy to say we love our customers. We print the banners and the hangers and the buttons. We make it part of our advertising campaigns. Of course, what else is a company going to say? Our customers are stupid. We wish they would get out of the way so we can get our jobs done around here. They're not going to say that. Many of them act that way, however. So using the language is easy. It's not about showing up for work on Monday, bringing your team together and saying, I love you, man. I love you, man. I love you, man.
It's
Nothing
not,
wrong with that, I guess, but that's not the point. However, consider this. Okay, let's go back to the customer for a second. If you bring your team together and you say to them, look, we want to score high on our customer numbers, a net promoter score. So let's brainstorm on how we can improve the quality of our customer service, right? It's a legitimate, reasonable question that a lot of companies have been asking for many years. You're going to get good answers. You're going to get some good ideas. But what if you asked it this way? What can we do to show our customers that we love them? You're going to get a different quality answer. First of all, the question is more provocative, so it gets people to think differently, but it also frames it up in a different way. I can give you a decent level of service and have you feel completely neutral about it. But if what I want to do is really show you that we love you, you're going to reciprocate, you're going to love us back, and that's where the payoff is. So what does that look like? And that is why the languaging is important, because if we set love as the bar, what we're doing is raising the standards. We're raising the expectations, as opposed to the knee-jerk interpretation of love is, it's that soft, squishy, it's that soft stuff. And nothing could be further from the truth. Love is anything but soft. This is really hard to put into practice. So we're not talking about love as a sentiment or a greeting card or flowery words. We're talking about love as a practice and a discipline. And we have to answer the question, what does that look like in the way that we do business?
I really think that's important, Steve. I think that's the missing element, that why love has not been said before is because we think of love as an emotion. I love you, man. Okay, well, that's great. How the heck does that drive business, right? That doesn't. In fact, I would argue a lot of times, if that's our goal in sales, in marketing, I love you, man, then they're not going to respect us, man. That's the problem, right? That's a fundamental disconnect. Instead of, I am behaving in the best interest of my customers, to be of service of them so that they can feel the love that we have, the care, compassion, the emotion, the vibe that we want them to feel, because we really do care, right? That old song, right? They don't care how much we know until they know how much we care. That's love, fundamentally.
Yeah. So let's play this out. So say those words to me. I love you, man. Just try it.
I love you, man.
Prove it.
There you go. Yeah.
That's what we're saying.
Absolutely.
As opposed to the knee-jerk reactions, I love you too. Yeah. Which is fine. Listen, all that's fine. But what we need to challenge ourselves to do as leaders and as business people, whether we're in a corporation or entrepreneurs or solopreneurs or educators, whatever your context is, the challenge that I need to give to myself on an ongoing basis is, how do I prove this to people? And I have to answer the question, therefore, what does it look like? And what should I do differently in order to get that person or those people to really experience what I'm talking about, not just hear the words?
Yeah. So love is an experience, not just a word or emotion. I think that's an important thing. And, it's I'm not quite sure when the podcast only is going to air with the audio only, but this week is Customer Experience Week. And it's really interesting that we talk about customer experience as though it's some esoteric thing, but it does come down to the love word, right? If I love you, would I treat you this way? If I love you, would I make my website 8 clicks to get to something that should be 1 click? Would I hide my best stuff?
Yes.
Right? If I'm in sales, would I, if I was sitting next to my mother, would I withhold information so that she had to call me? Now, maybe mom, don't call me while I'm talking to Steve here. Don't embarrass me. Though my dad just texted me. I don't think he's watching on his flip phone. But right, so but that's fundamentally it. That's fundamentally it, right? If we treated our customers as though they were a loved one, would we still behave that way?
Let me give you an example, okay? Because we're using words that I think people resonate with. Most people do, in my experience, and it makes sense. But what I try to do in the book is give lots and lots and lots of concrete examples. Here's what it looks like for this person, for this company, and hopefully it'll inspire you to think about what you can do differently with your business. So my one of my favorite little case studies, which I've been talking about quite a bit lately, and I wrote about in the book, is a company not too far from where you are right now, Phil. They're in Jacksonville. Okay, so I love this story because, first of all, it's not a particularly sexy business. They're a shipping company. So they ship containers of goods from Jacksonville to Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic, and from other. They also ship. They're expanding right now, so they're shipping from lots of places around. But that's what they do. They ship stuff. Okay, been in business for like 30 years, and there's a company called Trailer Bridge. They were their background is, and I'm saying this with no judgment, awful. They were a toxic place. Customers only did business with them because they were cheap. They only held on to employees because they paid them to be there. And eventually they went bankrupt. As they were emerging from bankruptcy, they burned through 4 CEOs in 3 years. They burned through 4 heads of HR in the same period of time. People the place was miserable. So they tapped Mitch Luciano, who was part of the management team. The board tapped him to step up and turn this place around. So keep in mind, they had been through 4 CEOs in the previous 3 years, and they asked Mitch to be CEO. So here's what he said. He said to the board, and I'm paraphrasing, it's not a direct quote, but he said, okay, look, I will do this. I will take this on because I believe in this company, and I love what we can do here. But first of all, I will not take the title of CEO because I have to earn that, because we've seen what happened to the last CEOs. And I'm just warning you, board, I'm a love guy, which he was. He was a real practitioner of the radical leap and the radical edge and greater than yourself. And he and I hadn't even met at this point, but it informed how he led. So this love thing was part of who he was. And he said, I'm going to create an environment that people love working in. I'm going to create, we're going to create an experience that our customers are going to love. And if we do that well, we will reap the benefits as an organization and as individuals. So that was his intent. And the question then was, if I love our employees and I love what we can accomplish together and I love this future, how do I show it? How do I prove it? What do we do differently? So he looked at everything from the physical environment to the way they did business. And he asked, does this facilitate an environment where people can really love working together? And up until that point, for example, the place was very siloed and it was very layered. So this was a company at the time with like 120 people, and they had, I don't know how many levels of management, right? So everybody had a boss, had a boss, had a boss. People had their offices. They would hold up in their offices. They lived in Cubicle City. The cubicles were really tall, so nobody ever saw each other. And people, 120 people were walking around with name tags on. So, because they didn't know each other, right? So Mitch said, okay, if we're going to have an environment where people really love working together, shouldn't we at least know each other's names? So he banished the name tags, which required, first of all, by the way, required his having to know everybody's name himself. So it was part symbolic and part systemic, right? Let's learn each other's names. He lowered the heights of the cubicle in the main area so people can actually see each other. And then they had this history there of operating where they were siloed, right? So I had my information, I had my knowledge, and it was mine. That's how I maintain my power. So here's the question Mitch asked. If we loved each other, what would we do with that information? We'd share it. We'd devote ourselves to other people having as much or more success than I have. So he made that very clear with his management team. This hoarding, he called them information hoarders, which I love that image, right? I picture somebody sitting in his office with piles of files, all over the office. This is mine. So he said, we're starting to share information. That's the new normal. And frankly, there were some people that just didn't want to do that. And frankly, those people are no longer there. So that's called tough love, right? But then here's one of the punchlines that I see in this. So they looked at, in light of Customer Experience Week, right? They looked at the customer experience. And the question they asked was, are we showing our customers that we love them in the way that we typically do business? So this is what emerged right out front. They had a policy in this shipping company that if they had a container that they were shipping to Puerto Rico, unless that container was at least 75% full, they would not sail. Because if they sailed less than 75%, they'd lose money on that shipment. All right, now look at it from the customer perspective. You're shipping a car to your family in Puerto Rico. You tell them it's going to be there on such and such a date. You find out that the boat didn't sail because they couldn't sell enough spots on it, right? So that's why their customer satisfaction numbers were terrible. So they asked the question, if we loved our customers, what would we do? When you ask the question that way, the answer is pretty obvious. What would you do?
Ship that car.
You sail. You sail because we said we would. And that's what they started doing. So when you add it all up, and there's hundreds of other, believe it or not, this is the short version of the story. I'm scratching the surface, but let's fast forward. They've now been voted #1 and #2 best place to work in the city of Jacksonville. They win service awards left and right. They just won another one last month. I can't remember which one it was, some quality shipper award. The revenues of this company, if you're wondering if love has an impact on the bottom line, the revenue of this company, of Trailer Bridge, for the last 2 years is more than the previous 25 years of the company combined. They spend no money on recruiting anymore because their recruiters are their employees. Because everybody loves working there. They want other people to join them. And it all comes from asking the question, what does love look like? Tell me you love me, man. Prove it. That's how you prove it.
Wow, Farber, that's pretty freaking awesome, man. So is there any downside to love, Steve? I mean, at work, what's the downside? There's got to be something. What's the catch?
I read a comment. I did a thing on Quora the other day, and I read a comment or a question. It says something like, when you look at all the songs written about love, maybe 3 out of 10 are positive. The rest is about heartache and heartbreak. So why is this dangerous idea of love important for business? So is there a downside? Of course there's a downside. There's a downside to everything. The downside in this case looks like, what if I really commit myself to you? What if I really go out of my way to show you that I love you and to show you that I value you as a customer, and then you go somewhere else, or you quit, or you just stab me in the back. I mean, there's all kinds of things that can happen. That doesn't mean that the idea is flawed. It means that shit happens. That's what it means. But you have to consider the alternative, right? What is the downside of not doing this? And if you stack those two up against each other, I'd much rather stack my odds on the love side than the absence of it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So
this is not about perfection. There are no guarantees. It's all fraught with risk, but we take those risks anyway. And I just think this increases our odds of success from what I've seen.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think it's fascinating. On page 180 of your book, you talk about praying for crop failure. This is the funniest part that you wrote in the book, man. I love this book. If you have not yet got a copy of Love is Just Damn Good Business, you need a copy of this. But Farber says on page 180, he says, there's an old adage when it comes to the principle of sowing and reaping, and it goes like this. If we truly reap what we sow, most of us should pray for crop failure. That's certainly true for many leaders. If you're one of them, you can try that strategy. You can sow seeds of selfishness, greed, and dissent, then hope and pray that by some miracle, you don't get what you actually deserve. Or you can sow seeds of love in your business. You can nurture those seeds by doing what you love in the service of the people around you. And you can reap the abundant rewards when those people demonstrate that they love what you do. The fruit you produce will be damn good business. Farber, that's beautiful, man. I love the way you wrap this sucker up. The whole book is fantastic. So what's one more lesson that people need? How do they get started delivering the love that's in their heart, that's in their mind, that their customers want, that their employees want, so they can get started on this love journey?
Yeah, thank you. It's a great question. I think there's a couple of first steps, if that's possible. Step number one is acknowledge that your desire to do this, that your impulse to do this, that your instinct to do this is the right instinct. Because we've been conditioned to believe that there's something wrong with that. And it's not true. So give yourself permission, I guess is another way of saying it. And then I'm going to be very specific. I'm going to be very specific and and somewhat general at the same time. The specific question that I recommend everybody start with is some version of this. Why do I love this business? Or whatever the context is, why do I love this team? Why do I love this customer? Why do I love this work? Why do I love this project? You pick the context. So just ask yourself that question. So let's take customers, for example. Why do I love my customers? And then part two of that question is, how do I show it? Why do I love this? How do I show it? Or what do I love about this? Because sometimes the answer to that question, is, why do I love my team? I don't. I don't. And it's a valid answer if that's the right answer. So then the question is, well, what do I love about this work? If it's not the team, is there something that I can find in here that I really do love? And there's an old saying that says what you put your attention on in your life tends to grow stronger. So start putting your attention in that place and see if you can fan those flames a little bit. But then the second part of the question, how do I show it, or how can I better show it, is where all the ideas come from. So just starting with those questions, you're going to come up with, I predict, hundreds of ideas over time to operationalize love, to make it part of your practice and discipline, and take it out of the world of sentiment into the world of observable behavior, which is where the payoff happens. So start there and see where it takes you.
Love that, Steve. Really, really good stuff. So folks, the book is Love is Just Damn Good Business. Do what you love in the service of those who love what you do. Really, really great stuff, Steve. If you want to catch up with Farber, check him out at stevefarber.com. He's on all the social medias as Steve Farber. That's Farber. And he makes his home in San Diego. So you'll see him on the speaking circuit. He's a great guy. And I really do love this guy. So I hope you enjoyed this, Farber. I love you, man. Thanks.
Oh, that was great. Thank you, Phil. Love you too, brother.
All right.
You're
Good
supposed to say, prove it.
Yeah, nah, you have proved it, man. Over the last 15 years, you've been a great friend. You don't have to prove it anymore to me, man. I know it's true.
Thank you.
My pleasure. All right. So